Hey, you ever set the same goals over and over and yet still not achieve them?
Oh.
Well, if you have, you're certainly not alone. I know I have many times. But there's one thing I discovered, which once you get this, completely transforms your approach. You know, it's like discovering the missing piece of a jigsaw puzzle, and there's that big aha moment of like, wow, I never realized this. So, you ready to dive in? All right, let's go. So here's the thing. So setting goals is not the key to success. In fact, it might be what's holding you back. We've been taught to set SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed. But what happens when you set a goal and you don't achieve it? Well, then you feel like a failure. And in those cases, goals can lead to short-term motivation, but kind of long-term disappointment. And it just becomes a vicious cycle. Standards, on the other hand, are about who you are and what you consistently do. So what are standards? Standards are the habitual behaviors, the habitual actions that move you to your goal. They're the actions that close the gap between where you are and the goal that you want to achieve. The easiest way to think about this is to understand how standards are different to goals. So goal is an outcome, meaning it's in the future. You don't have it yet. Such as you might want to make £10,000 or dollars per month, or you might want to lose 10 kilos. A standard, by contrast, are actions you do now, in the present. Actions which progress you towards the goal. So if the goal is to lose weight, the action is to work out. The standard is to work out 3 times per week. The standard is to avoid junk food and eat real food every day. The standard is to be in a calorie deficit each day. So you get the idea, does that make sense? So unlike goals, which are future-focused and outcome-based, standards are present-focused and process-based. So of course it then makes sense that without standards, goals are just meaningless. Alright, so how do you create standards? First off, get really clear what the goal is. Then ask yourself this question. What are the repeatable actions you need to do consistently to progress you towards the goal? So with my 4th down, there were actually multiple sub-goals which would get me to where I wanted to be a 4th down. Now you might find the same, in fact you probably will. Most goals tend to break down into smaller sub-goals first. So for 4th down, there were specific skill goals that I needed to work on. There were flexibility and hip mobility goals, and there were speed and power goals. So then it wasn't what are the repeatable actions for 4th down. It was what are the repeatable actions for developing the skills? What are the repeatable actions for developing the flexibility and mobility? What are the repeatable actions for developing the speed and power? And then I turned those actions into, in this case, workout routines. And the routines are the standards because those are the actions you do now, not some point in the future, now in the present moment. So it might be daily, it might be weekly, it might be 3 times a week, but that becomes the standard. Does that make sense? So if my goal was to learn Spanish, which it is, then I would break that down into the Spanish sub-goals. And then for each of those, break that down into daily repeatable actions. So for example, that might be, on a daily basis, learn 10 new words. Then it might be learn 3 new verbs and how to use them in a sentence, and how to use that sentence in the present tense, the past tense, the future tense. And then on a weekly basis, spend 20 minutes talking to a native Spanish speaker. Those then become the standards. They're the table legs. Repeatable actions which move the needle, which progress me towards the goal. Now, of course, a bad standard is actions which don't move the needle, that don't move you towards the goal. Now, you may not know what they are until you actually do something and find out that actually what you're doing isn't working, it isn't getting you to where you want to be. But think of it this way. Anything you write down as a repeatable action is always going to be a reversible decision. Like you can do it for a week and then evaluate it and go, actually, that didn't work. In which case, great, roll it back, come up with a better set of repeatable actions. And by the way, I did pass my 4th down. So the goal gave me the direction and the desire, the drive, but it was the routines, the standards that actually got me to pass my 4th down. And I did create a video all about it, so you can go and check that out as well. So remember, a goal without standards is meaningless. It's a table with no legs. So set your standards, then live your standards. All right, I'll see you next time.